Herod's Temple in Jerusalem. These 3D videos of Herod's Temple in Fort Antonia were created to show the layout of the temple according to the old maps, Jewish sources, Josephus, and the ruins beneath and around the Temple Mount. The temple was not located in the city of David, nor where the Dome of the Rock is now. It was located on the threshing floor of King David on Ophel Hill. This hill is not at the peak of the mount, where the dome is, nor is it in the city of David, where no threshing floor would be located because of the chaff blowing in the wind. It was located on a hill halfway up the mount called Ophel Hill. In this painting of Solomon's Temple, viewed from the Mount of Olives, it has a lower southern court on the Ophel outside the south wall of the Temple Mount of today. The next is Herod's Temple with its enlarged lower court containing the Royal Stoa, also on the Ophel outside the south wall. Herod also built Fort Antonia north of the temple. The fort overlooked the temple, and the temple overlooked the city. According to Josephus, Herod's temple complex was a furlong by a furlong, which is 600 by 600 feet. Solomon's porch was built on the east side of it, and it is still in the maps today from the 1800s, known as Triple Gate. In Minecraft, I have tried to build everything as close as I could to the actual dimensions given in the old sources concerning the temple and the fort, which isn't easy to do with blocks and not being able to round anything off. This is a view looking north from the city of David at Herod's southern gate. Remains of this gate and walls can still be seen in the Ophel ruins today. We can see Fort Antonia north of the temple. The temple only took up 600 feet west to east. The Temple Mount we see today is almost double that size. The temple complex, including Fort Antonia, was a furlong by 2 furlongs, 600 by 1,200 feet, not near the size of the Temple Mount today. As we swing around to view the temple from the Mount of Olives, we see the Red Heifer Bridge and Solomon's Porch, and a very low east wall in the forefront. This low wall was once a part of the city wall that Nehemiah rebuilt. Nehemiah did not rebuild any of the temple walls. Over time, this east wall was built higher, first by the Byzantines and later by the Muslims. But this lower area during the temple times was used to corral the thousands and thousands of sheep and cattle brought in for sacrifice on holy days. At the northeast end of it, there are 3 buildings which are still underground on the Temple Mount. I'm going to hone in on these 3 buildings in this area. Those that claim Solomon's Temple was built on the Dome of the Rock platform also show on their maps that the Women's Court was built at ground level of the Temple Mount right over the top of these 3 buildings. We can see Fort Antonia looming in the background. The first building is 44 feet high. This is not possible because Solomon's Temple was built in 950 BC before Hezekiah built the city wall and gate and the 3 buildings seen on Warren's map. How could these 3 buildings be built under the Women's Court after the Women's Court had already been built at least 250 years before these buildings were built? It makes no sense at all and totally undoes the Dome of the Rock theory. At the northeast corner are the old gate and Old East Gate and Sheep Gate, described by Nehemiah. And the ruins of the old gate are still below the so-called Golden Gate of today. That's called the Mikvah Gate, where the red heifer was brought in, and also the cattle. The next on the north wall is the Sheep Gate. North of Fort Antonia was a steep ravine on the east and a man-made moat cut into the bedrock on the west. It was 200 feet by 50 feet deep. It cut the natural land bridge between the fort and the hill to the north of it in half. The ravine and the ruins of the moat were excavated by Sir Charles Warren in the 1800s and are located on his maps. Josephus also refers to the moat in the historical writings, giving us further details. An attacking army would have to fill in the moat to create flat land to attack from. Titus cut every tree around to fill in the moat and set up his catapults. Once he was able to take the fort, he could then take the temple and then the city. The wall in the forefront was the starting place of the second city wall, which Herod the Great built, and it continued around the new section of the city. Next, we'll see the first century street, and at the end of it are these two pillars, and they mark the place where the second century street ends. One would enter the street from the marketplace, which was lined on either side with pillars. At this point, the original western wall also ends. This is straight across from the north end of the Dome of the Rock platform, as you can see in this diagram. The whole west side for the length of the Temple Mount didn't exist before Herod the Great. It was a steep valley. Herod built the new west wall from the bottom of the valley up. This added around 130 feet to the width of the Temple Mount from east to west, but the southern part of the west wall was built by his son and grandsons. The gates in the western wall were named after the explorers in the 1800s. The first one is Warren's Gate, the next Wilson's Arch, which continued as a wall all the way around Jerusalem. The next is Barclay's Gate, and the last one is Robertson's Arch, with its stepped bridge. Josephus called them lower and upper gates. The lower court was the last court to be enlarged. It was built by Herod's grandson and finished around 66 AD. This contained the Royal Stoa, which was like a covered mall. It was 600 feet in length and 105 feet wide. Gentiles were allowed in the Stoa, also called the Court of the Gentiles. The temple was laid even to the ground in 70 AD. All that remained was the retaining walls, which couldn't be pushed over because they were below ground level. We can determine the ground level of the mount as it was in 70 AD by the huge Herodian stones in the western wall and the lowest stones in the southern wall. Please continue to the 5-part 3D series of Herod's Temple as it would have been in 70 AD. For more information, sources, and maps explaining this location, visit templemountlocation.com, where you will find the links to the videos for the location and also the 3D videos and photo gallery. Thank you for listening.